like this. And the hat is very simple, it's made like this. You can either staple it, as I've done, or you can sew it or stick it, and that makes a hat which will fit any head. And also they all stack very nicely one on top of the other, so they don't take up too much room. The helper says, shall we have S first? And everyone sings, Mr. S, Mr. S, where are you? And the person with Mr. S sings, here I am, how do you do? Always praise and encourage the ones that perhaps don't notice that it's their turn to sing. In fact, the whole group should be looking at them, and of course it's something for them to have to remember. They've got to remember which sound is on the front of their head. Another game for very young students, which they seem to enjoy, is called Choose a Card. A child goes out of the room and we all choose one of the cards. For instance, we might choose thumb. In comes the child and they have to point to each card in turn, saying either the picture or the picture and the sound until we get to the card that has been chosen. And then, great, yes, and then another child is chosen to go out for the next session. If the child is quite good at their sounds, then you can choose one on that end of the table or the blackboard. If the child isn't so good at their sounds, perhaps you could choose one at this end so that they get to it quite quickly. This game is called Add a Card. You start off with a few cards on the table. The student looks away and the helper adds another card. The student looks back and sees if they can guess which card has been added. They might say the picture, or they might say the picture and the sound. They look away again and another card is added. Sort of the opposite of this is called Take Away a Card, and in this game you start off with several cards on the table, and when the students had a good look at them, then they turn away and you take one of the cards away. And they turn round and see if they can guess which card has been removed. This is the place mat game. You have one of these uncut cards on the table in front of you, and it might be before the meal, and you have a drink of water because water is very good to help your memory. So you have a look at the cards here, and then your helper says, close your eyes, look away, and it's like pin the tail on the donkey. Put your finger out and see if you can touch the card I've chosen. So the helper says, the card I've chosen is Spider Sp. Close your eyes and look away and see how near you are. All right, point. Oh, almost. Well done. This activity is called Ticky Ticky Toll, What's Through the Hole? I have made a hole which will take a pencil in the middle of each rectangle using this punch with a hammer, and on the back I have written the letters on the next to the hole that they correspond to. So if I say to Anne which one would be, where would camp be, camp she's going to have a go to find out. Well done, you're correct. In fact, young students quite like having it on this way round, and you just say which one is the girl and they poke the pencil through here, this way. It's another way of, and they do enjoy that, another way of using it. This is the troubleshooting section where we may be able to help you sort out some of your problems. When you're saying the letters of the alphabet, you might have problems. Your helper might say which letter is F, and you attempted to point to this one, which might sound strange, but of course F begins with the sound E, which of course you've learned as that. So this one is F, this one is L, that starts with an E sound as well, and M, and N, and S, and X, they all have an E sound at the beginning. These are also letters that can be confused. The C and the S, they both start with a S sound. The G and the J both start with a J sound. H and A both sound as if they start with A. And the two K's, of course, are always confusing. And Q and K both have a K sound at the beginning. And of course R, you know as the word R-A-R-E. The U and the Y are confusing because, of course, U begins with this one, not a U, the word U. W and D, W sounds if it starts with a D sound. And Y and Y, of course, the word why, you know, why are you doing something? Those two are confusing as well. If you're asked to read this word bad, you might read it as pat. Now that sounds quite strange, but in fact B and P are very similar sounds, and D and T are very similar sounds. In fact, my mother had confusion with these, so she used to write a B and a P like this, so that it could be either the B at the top and the P at the bottom. Now these pairs of consonants that can be confused are on this sheet here. Most of them are on this sheet. So that there's the G and the K there. Now this column here, you say the letters. This column here, you whisper the letters. So this one is G and this one is K. K. B. P. V. F. D. T. Z. S. And of course the two ths again. V and th. They're called voiced and unvoiced, and they're quite confusing. You can feel these similar consonants in your throat. So you put the back of your hand against your throat and you say G, and you can feel your voice box moving. If you say K, K, which of course can be a C or a K, then your voice box doesn't move. If you say B, which is voiced, your voice box moves, but if you say P, your voice box doesn't move. It's quite clear to feel. Letters B and D are often confused because they are such a similar shape. Here, this D has got a little foot, but normally it doesn't have a little foot, and then they're really confusing. Some people use bed to help them remember the letters, but I use my fists. Now this is the B and this is the D. Now if you say the word baby, can you say it without sticking your lips together? You can't, you have to say A-E. Can you say bike without sticking your lips together? Or bin or bit? No, you can't, so that if you have to stick your lips together, you have to do the stick first. There's the stick. Now, a word beginning with the D sound, like dog or dark or danger, your mouth is open all the time when you're saying a D. So if you saying the D, if you write a D, you do the open mouth first. You do a C to do a D. And if you forget which one is B, then you can draw a little B on your thumb. When you read the words or letters, they may seem to flip over from left to right, so that you might read on as no, for instance, or no as on, or was as saw, and saw as was. Or they might flip over from the top to the bottom, so that instead of reading mouth, you read month, or the other way round, so that you can confuse the U with the N. Pat and pet, for instance. The A and the E can be confusing, especially if it's this sort of A which you have in newspapers, because that can flip over and look very much like an E. And then you have tar and far, the T and the F can be confusing, the D and the P in dig and pig, and then the B and the P in beg and peg. When you have been taught the Flossie-Zac ending, the CK, you might be tempted to put CK at the end of all the small words with a K at the end. But in fact the rule is K is always number 3 except for magic E. Now number 1 is the first vowel, so in a word like sock, the O is number 1. Now we've said that K is number 3. Now because there's nothing there, that you put a C there. But in park, A is number 1, R is number 2, K is number 3, so you don't need that C. So we'll get rid of that one. And look is the same because you have 1, 2, 3, so you don't need a C. I said that K is number 3, except for magic E. Now, if you're writing a word like make or broke, don't be tempted to put the CK in those, because the E is number 3 in magic E words. Now, I always call the E the elephant letter, and you don't argue with elephants. If you need a reminder about Flossie Zach, then go to set 4 for spelling. And of course, F and L are also Flossie Zach letters. So at the end of Cliff, you have double F, but it's the same rule. F is number 3 again. So if you have a word like leaf, the first vowel is number 1, this is number 2, and the F is number 3. So you don't have double F there, you just need one F. And the same with self, 1, 2, 3. So still is one of the L ones with double L at the end because it's a Flossie Zach word. But in a word like feel, 1, 2, 3, you don't need double L. Girl, 1, 2, 3, you don't need a double L. And a word like shelter, where you're tempted to put 2 L's, you don't need 2 L's there because there are 2 consonants here to keep this magic E away from that one. So it's still going to be E.